All right. Hey, Katie, how's it going? You're not seeing the video?
Hey,
Oh, okay. How's it
doing
going?
great.
So
Great.
Katie and I have shared the stage before at other HRTX events and other places as well. You guys are going to be really impressed with Katie. She is a very, very highly professional sourcer, and definitely one of my top friend sourcers in the industry. Katie's background comes from, well, at least most recently, she's done other things, but a lot of pharma and biotech, pharmaceutical research and stuff like that. So when it comes to finding scientists and people that are published or doing research or work in laboratories and regulatory affairs and things like that. So she's the bomb. Anyway, Katie, thanks for accepting my invitation. So we got 10 things we want to share with you today, and the plan was that we were going to go back and forth and sort of tag team on them. And we put together a little bit of an order that hopefully will make sense to most of you. So, if it doesn't, then complaints go to me, compliments go to Katie and Ryan. The first topic that we wanted to present is about the intake meeting. So the idea here is we want to show you 10 things that we do every day as sourcers, as researchers, as recruiters, 10 things that are pragmatic and useful and you should be doing pretty much every day, except for maybe one of them, which Katie's going to tell you she doesn't do every day, but that's okay. We'll let that one slide. The first of those is the intake meeting, because I believe in all my experience that one of the biggest points of failure in the recruiting and the sourcing process is the intake meeting, meaning that if you get that wrong, you spin your wheels and can go off in a completely incorrect direction as a sourcer. So I will start, and then I'm going to switch things, not switch things, but I'm going to turn it over to Katie, and then from here on in, we're just going to go back and forth. So if you get confused with all the tennis,
can you make that screen a little bit bigger?
Yeah, sure. I can make it bigger, but
can you zoom in?
Yeah, that might not work. That's okay. I can. Well, this is really just my notes, anyways. So we're not going to, this is really not a takeaway, but I can share the document. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the intake meeting. And my contribution to the conversation around the intake is something that I found to be very useful in every difficult hiring manager situation, particularly when I walk into a meeting or call into a meeting and the hiring manager is already kind of frustrated. As an example, I had once a hiring manager from the Cartoon Network sit down in the meeting, and literally the first words out of his mouth were, "What are you going to do that nobody else has done before?" Because they had this search on for a while. And, I'm like, wow, okay, you start out, with a challenge. So this is what I did. What I did is I asked him one question. I said, look, I don't know if I can help you, but I do know that I need an answer to this. And that is, I need a knockout question. And he said, what is a knockout question? A knockout question, or at least that's what I call it, is a question that you always ask every candidate. As a hiring manager, you're interviewing for a position, and this is something that you ask everybody that really early in the conversation tells you basically if they're in or out. It's kind of like the truth test or the truth serum or the litmus test. And he's like, well, I don't know about that. I don't ask the same question to everybody. And I said, you know what? Think about it. For this position, you've been interviewing lots of candidates and you've not accepted any of them. So what are you asking them that eliminates them? And so he said, all right, let me think about it. He went away, came back a little while later, several days later, and this is the question that he asked, or he told me. He said, what I want to know is when I'm talking to somebody that is a product manager in the apps business. Remember, this is a long time ago. Well, I didn't tell you, but this is a long time ago. He said, I want them to tell me if they had their own money or if they had unlimited money and money was not a problem, where would they launch their app first? Would they launch it on Facebook? Would they launch it on Android, or would they launch it on iOS or Apple? And he said the correct answer is iOS, because we're trying to monetize this app, and that's where we're going to make the most money. And a good product manager is going to know that. If they say Android and then iOS, they're probably in it for the fun, and they're in it for the technical things, but they're not really a moneymaker. And if they say Facebook right now, that's a losing proposition. At least this is what he said. So that's an example. So what I'm telling you is go to your hiring managers and ask them for a knockout question. One question that you can ask a candidate that will tell you whether or not this person is worth submitting or not. Another example is I had a rec for a warehouse facilities manager, and the hiring manager said, ask the candidate how big the warehouse was that they managed, the largest one. Was it 500,000 square feet or more? Most candidates I talked to were 50, 100,000 square feet, so they didn't even qualify. And this helped eliminate a lot. Now, Katie, I know you have a different way of doing the intake. Can you tell us what you did?
Sure. Thanks, Shally. So a few thoughts on the intake. And I think first, if I had $1 for all the times that a hiring manager has told me, I want a great communicator, a good team player, a great leader, I just feel my eyes rolling back into my head and thinking this is going to be really tough. So what I try to do within the intake is spend a good bit of time listening, getting a sense of the hiring manager, who they are, how they respond to their team. And then when I feel like I have a little bit of an understanding who they are, really starting to push for specifics. I don't want to hear about all of I do, but I don't want to hear about all the attributes of making a great heartfelt employee. I want to hear about what this person is going to be doing. And I, especially within scientific recruiting, like to push my hiring managers to tell me exactly what they're going to be working on, because that's where a potential hire gets really excited about an opportunity. They don't want to just know what their title is going to be or the panache of the company that they're joining. They want to know that the work that they have has meaning. And again, especially within the scientific community, it's got to be something that really grabs them and represents above and beyond the type of opportunities they're working on now. Maybe it's an opportunity to work on a project that is going to be filing in the future. Maybe it's an opportunity to work on a disease state that's not currently being studied or not widely studied. So, Shally, if you don't mind sharing the information that I shared, it's actually a slide from Pfizer. So thanks, Pfizer. I opted not to share Alexion's pipeline, even though it's completely public online. But instead, I thought I would share this bit of information from Pfizer about rare disease. And this says not only what they're studying, but where the phases are. What phase of study are they in? What type of molecule is it? And what are their targets, or what's what they're trying to kind of prove. And these are the details that a potential hire really wants to know. This is what's going to be exciting. And for me, as I recruit them, it's what gets their attention at the beginning, and it's what I can then gauge and kind of keep them excited about all through the recruiting process. So truly pushing them for specifics.
So Kate, what I'm hearing you say here basically is you're saying get the details that are going to matter to the candidates. You don't have to know how to solve rare disease problems, but you need to be able to communicate to the candidate what is exciting about this opportunity, because otherwise really good talent is just going to pass on on the introduction, right? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not just in the vagueness, but really, we want you to run this study. We want you to be part of this team, do this work. I think that's really helpful.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Perfect. Okay, great. So the next thing is, now that we've sort of started things out right with the intake meeting, the next thing is with regard to reaching out to candidates. It's the outreach to candidates. Now, a lot of conversations out there about effective emails and subject lines and how long your email should be and all that, but I'm going to tell you something that is probably going to shock you, and that is that most of your emails are not getting through. And I'm not saying that they're marked as spam. I'm saying that they're not even delivered. And if you want to challenge me to that, then I'm going to ask you to prove to me that those emails are getting delivered. I've run into this so many times that it's basically one of the first things I start looking at when I talk to a customer or a client, and they come to me for consulting and they want to know, what's going on with why is our recruiting or our sourcing not working? So what I'm begging you to do, please, is don't assume that your emails are getting to their destination. Again, I don't mean that they're going into the spam folder. I mean that they're not arriving in their inbox at all. So I urge you to test. There's a few ways you can test. there's a free testing service called mail-tester.com, mail-tester.com. I use a paid service called Glock, Glock, apps, apps.com, where you pay per credit. It's really inexpensive. And what that does is it sends your email to a whole series of seed accounts. I think it's like 60 or so in different domains, Gmail, Yahoo, etc. And these are domains, these are email addresses that are owned by this process. And so they can actually verify that your email is delivered. What's going on here, and I can spout off for hours on this, but what's going on here is your messages don't actually get through the server for 3 really big reasons that have nothing to do with you. Now, there's a bunch of other things that cause your email to go into spam. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that the server that's forwarding the message to your recipient isn't even actually going to do that. So the reason this is important is, let's say that you have a 30% reply rate. You're thinking, oh man, that's terrible. I'm sending out 100 emails and only 30 people are replying back. Actually, I'm going to question that. What if only 50 people that you sent that message to actually got it? So 100 people didn't get it, 50 people got it, and you got 30 replies. That's not a 30% response rate. That's a 60% response rate, which is exceptional because you just don't, the other 50 never got delivered. So until you know for sure that your emails are getting through, don't beat yourself up over open rates, reply rates, or whatever. At least test it to make sure. If you don't want to use a service, what you can do is you can create 10 different email addresses, a Yahoo, Hotmail, AOL, a Gmail, etc., and then send a test email to those addresses. You can check all of them using a mail application like Outlook or whatever, and just see if they got delivered. And if all 10 of them got delivered, then you're good. But if some of them didn't, you need to start looking into this. Katie, you have something else that you wanted to add to email deliverability as well.
Sure. So, and I know this the hard way, but make sure that if you're using a tool that maybe sources or sends and tracks your email, make sure that you're whitelisted, both within your own organization and to Shally's point, if you start seeing a lot of bounce backs or undeliverable messages, take action on those because it's absolutely a waste of your time to put so much effort into the message that you're sending and then not have it get through to your source. The other thing is make sure you're diversifying how you send the messages. So I use every email address I can find because you never know which one is going to be the one that a person uses.
Katie, you email them at work and personal at the same time, right? You like email work and personal. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah,
and frankly, I'll sometimes send an email too. I want to make sure that there is no room for confusion, that I'm trying to reach this person. And so I do. I make sure I use every resource I have available to me.
Does anybody ever come back and say, oh my God, why are you, spamming me or harassing me when you send it to 3 addresses? Yeah, not really. I find that too. Yeah. That's interesting. That's a good point. So now we're going to start calling people who didn't reply to our messages. And this is the cold call, okay? A lot of recruiters don't like this because there's some rejection and it's difficult, it's laborious, but it's a necessary part of what we do because sometimes people are just not responding to our messages. Maybe they're not even getting it. Maybe we don't even have an email address for them. So I'm going to give you one tip on how to make cold calling a little bit easier for you. And that is what I like to call my pre-call. So before I start doing a batch of cold calls where I'm going to, contact everybody that hasn't replied to my email, I have a spreadsheet or my CRM or whatever, I'm going to make 2 calls. And these are going to be calls to people that I don't know. So they're not friends, they're not relatives. They're going to be calls to strangers, but they're going to be calls with no agenda at all. In other words, I'm not calling to recruit them. I'm not calling them to sell them opportunities or business or whatever. I'm just calling them for networking. And literally the call is, hey, by the way, one of the best ways to do this nowadays is to call 2 people from your LinkedIn that have recently invited you to connect. That's a simple one. You can just call them up and say, hey, I got your invitation. I just accepted. Wanted to say hi, introduce myself. Here's what I do, blah, blah, blah. What do you do? Let's stay in touch. It's basically a no-fail call because you're contacting someone that already invited you to connect, and you're just introducing yourself. What this does is it gets you in the mood or preps you to talk to a stranger, and it takes some of the jitters away. And I do this twice, very quick messages. Then I can jump into my cold calls, and I'm not as afraid. I'm a lot more comfortable. I sound better on the phone. I've already sort of cleared my throat, so to speak. So warm up with 2 networking calls that are just for networking. Another thing I do is I add those people, after I talk to them, I add them to my Outlook with a little note of when we spoke and what they do. And now I have a small list that constantly is built of connections or VIPs. I've gotten candidates out of this. I've emailed these people and said, hey, 6 months ago we connected, wondering if you have anybody. I've gotten job opportunities. So even if it's not directly recruiting related, it's definitely professional. What do you do, Katie, for cold calling?
So Shally and I have laughed about me and cold calling, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But I think that anytime you can give someone a heads up that you want to talk to them, your message is going to be a little more familiar and perhaps better received. So if I'm working with LinkedIn per se, I might make sure that I have the setting where they can see that you've looked at their profile. I keep that open all the time so that everyone can see that I've looked at their profile, because I think people generally take it as a compliment when they see that someone has looked at their profile, or they're super intrigued about why you looked at their profile. So I think of this as kind of a virtual business card that anytime I visit a profile, I'm dropping my information on them. And about 50% of the time, I'll get an invite back from that person if I haven't already sent one, or sometimes I'll even get a message of, hey, I noticed you were looking at my profile, because it intrigues people. So I like to create that. And then sometimes I also will go ahead, and I know I'm going to reach out to them in email the next day. I might go ahead and send them just a connection request. Again, so they're used to seeing my name. They know that I want to connect with them. And I find that it's just kind of opening them up to this conversation that I hope is to come.
You're warming up the call. It's basically you're warming up the call. Like I'm warming up my calling. You're warming up that call. That's smart. That's great. Yeah. So it's a networking request that turns into a call, and that's not a cold call anymore. Good. So on to the next thing, the bane of your existence, Excel, and I spell that with an H-E-L-L. How many of you just have nightmares about Excel? Well, I'm here to tell you that there are some really cool things that you can do very easily with Excel that will help you significantly speed up how you work with it, and actually will make you enjoy Excel. And I'm going to turn tables around here because I think the couple of things that Katie has to show you should come first in this example here. So Katie, let me see. I've got your screenshots here from that you sent me. I'm going to open them up, and it's the first one is the text to columns, right? Is that it? Katie?
Thanks, Ryan. Yes, so I would describe my 3 tips as being your your starter Excel. But then I'm always amazed by the times that I'll use these and people don't know how to do it. So I'm sharing with you, and if you've been using this for 10 or 15 years, then just nod your head in the background and say, I knew I was this good. But so the first is text to columns, and Shally, if you can show this. This is something that maybe I find a long list of people, and it has their name, comma, their title, comma, and where they work. Can you scroll down, Shally, for me? And in text to columns, what you can do is you can create any kind of symbol or either a pause, a space, a tab. If there's I still don't see it, Shally. If those things are there in the data, then you can spread the data out. So perhaps I want to spread out the name separate from the title, separate from the company. Still don't see it, Shally.
Is this it? The one that has it has Albert Einstein and Marie Curie in it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let me I zoomed in, and I think I might have done something wrong. How about now? Can you see it now?
Yes, right. Yeah, so this would be my, my ultimate call list. This is the 10 perhaps most renowned scientists and biggest big contributions. Maybe if I were recruiting them on my very best day, I might want to spread out these names. So right now it's all in one column. There's a space between each of their names, that's first and last, and you can do text to columns, which you can see highlighted up at the top. Go through the steps. Space obviously is going to be the break here, and it breaks it apart so that you can have a column with their first name and their last name. It totally makes it easier if you're trying to upload it to your CRM. So the next thing, Shally, if you can keep moving, scroll through, is filter. Once you've got a list of names, there's a lot of reasons that you might want to filter the names. Maybe you want to alphabetize it just because it makes it easier for you to work with. Maybe you've color-coded them based on great candidates, not so great candidates, not interested. You could have a lot of things working in the background, and maybe you want to share this list with a hiring manager. Having the ability to manipulate the data really easily through the filter feature just makes you look that much more prepared and professional as you share these types of reports with a hiring manager. Not to mention, you don't have to have a CRM to be able to do this. If you're working from Excel, or even if you just want to pull data from your CRM and you want to have a simple report, this is a way, again, just to have a really clean output that shows that you're on top of your game. And
you can filter by text. You can also filter by color of the text and by color of the highlight as well.
That's right. Yeah, it does. It gives you a lot of different ways to manipulate the data that are very usable to you. So I would absolutely try this out and become familiar with how to use it if it's not something that you incorporate on a daily basis already. And then last is concatenate. So this is a really fancy way of saying smush it together. Perhaps you have a list and the formatting of it is not right for you to put into your CRM or whatever you're using to be able to further work with the data. You can use concatenate to make column A marry column B, and they appear together. So here's the formula for it. It's just not difficult, but it's not something perhaps that you're going to look at and, in 5 minutes staring at your Excel screen, know how to do on your own. So here's concatenate. It's another great tool for you to look really smart with Excel, with what I would call my basic skill set of Excel. But these three things can really help you to prepare and be very professional when you're interacting with your peers and your hiring managers.
Right, good. So you basically have a column with data that's got spaces or commas or dashes, and you can break it up into different columns, or you can take different columns and join them together. And also you can filter the columns by, different ways so that you can visually see only the ones that are relevant to you. So that's excellent. I use those literally all of the time.
Agreed.
So for me, what I wanted to share with Excel was conditional formatting, trim, and VLOOKUP. So with conditional formatting, what you can do with conditional formatting is you can actually have a cell, let me zoom in on this a little bit, be formatted as in like have bold or highlight or whatever based on some criteria. So you can highlight the entire database or the entire table, I should say, and I'm going to show you both the easy way and the quote-unquote hard way, okay? The easy way is you go over here to conditional formatting, and you have a bunch of different things. You've seen the icon sets and the color scales or whatever, but one of the coolest ones is the highlight highlight cells based on text. So, for example, if I want to find out or visually inspect all the cells that have unknown in them because the data isn't complete, I just simply put in unknown, and then I can choose how I want this formatted. Let's say I want red with yellow, yellow with red, red text, red border, etc. Once I hit OK, now all of the cells in my spreadsheet here that have unknown information are highlighted. So that's one way to do it. The other way, when you have something that's a little bit more sophisticated, like you need to do a formula to verify or to do a lookup, let's say that I want to highlight all the rows, the entire row, where the person is in Chicago. I can just add a column here that's just called, let's say, highlight. And then I'm going to create a rule, basically, that is a conditional formatting, but now I'm going to create a new rule out of this. Actually, I should have just chosen new rule. Sorry about that. There we go. And the rule is going to be determine which cells to format. So the rule that I want to use is I want to format all of the cells, but only when the column P, so the formula equals when the column P equals Chicago. And I want the entire row to be formatted with, let's say, a yellow highlight or something like that. So it says formula values where this formula is true. If P, it's supposed to be the column, sorry. If P equals Chicago, then highlight the whole cell. And I think it's asking me which table to apply because I didn't select the whole table. There we go. All right. Here we go. Now I selected the whole table. Format, new rule, use formula equals to column P equals to Chicago, then change the fill, which is basically the highlight, to yellow. All right, that should work. What? Did I not put the row number? I didn't put the row number. Okay, let's start with 2. All right, let's see. Did it work? Are there any Chicagos? Chicago, Chicago, Chicago. Oh, great. No, I don't have any Chicagos. Oh, wait, that's. Okay. So I made a mistake, which I'm going to fix, but this is a good one because this is probably going to happen to you too. It worked, except what happened was it highlighted the row above. Let's see if I can show you here. Chicago. There it is. See, it found Chicago and highlighted the one above. That's okay. I can fix that. And the reason for that is probably because I did the cell below. So to fix it, just go to conditional formatting, manage the rules, and then this is the one that we had here. I'm just going to edit it to change it to P1. I think that was the mistake that I made. And I'm going to zoom out again. Here we go. Come on, Chicago. Maybe I should have chosen a city that is not as uncommon as Chicago. There it is. All right, there you have it. So now you can see it highlighted all the rows with Chicago. So to combine this with Katie's, you can then filter based on Chicago to just show that. So now you have highlighting and you have filtering. So that is the conditional formatting. The other one is a lot easier, and that is trim. So Katie showed you how to combine information. Well, sometimes the information that you get, and this is particularly true when you export from a CRM or from another source, or when you scrape data from the internet, has a space in it. So I'm just going to grab a few names here, like these names here, and I'm going to go to a new sheet and show you what I'm talking about. So let's say that Archana has a space next to her, Brian has a space next to him, and let's say Lisa has 2 spaces or whatever. If I was to do the concatenate formula that Katie showed you, what will happen is those spaces will get injected into that formula. And you don't want that because I'm going to zoom in. I think this is a little bit small here. Let's see. Zoom, zoom, zoom. No zoom. Why not zoom? Zoom. Here we go. There you are. So I'm just going to concatenate this, comma, this, and expand the column so you can see. So that's Archana, Archana. And you can see the ones that have spaces, the space got inserted there because there was a space next to the name, and the other ones did not. So if I added a space to the Naya, you'll see that space automatically create. So sometimes you have a space before. That's another one that I see a lot when you copy information you scrape information from the web. So there's a space at the beginning of the word, and that can be pretty annoying. All you have to do to fix that is essentially just type in the command trim. It's just TRIM in the formula bar. Why isn't it letting me do that? What the? Okay. Well, it's not letting me edit the spreadsheet now for some weird reason. There we go, TRIM, and then the cell that you want trimmed, and that's it. It's going to copy the text over, but it's going to remove any spaces that were there before. So now let me add a space to the beginning of our Chana. You can see our Chana here has a space before it. I'm going to add like a few more spaces so you can see. But the trim has taken that away. So it's on both sides, the beginning and the end. It takes away any extra spaces. Not in the middle, just extra spaces at the beginning and at the end. And then the last thing that I want to show you with Excel is VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP is useful when you have a big list of contacts and you want to find information about those contacts in another list. Say you have two lists, or even if you have one list, but you want to look up things from one row to another. So let's say that you want to find out what job title Roland has. So this is in column A. We're going to go over here to this sheet, and we're going to put that information in here. That's Roland. Grab that again. There we go. So let's say we want to find out what job title this person has. To do VLOOKUP, all you have to do is use the VLOOKUP command, select that cell, which is the one you're going to look up, then go to the destination where you're going to look it up. In this case, it's this row, column, I'm sorry. But you also need to select the destination of the column that you want to return as the result. So that's the column I. So we're basically going to highlight all the way from A to I. And you need to count the columns because this formula depends on numbers, not letters. 1 is the first one. So A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're going to use number 9. So you're saying, go to this table, look up this email address on the first column, and then return whatever is on that row on the 9th column. And then you have a choice of either true or false. What that does is true means it does matching based on proximity. So if it's almost right, it'll bring it back. But you want an exact match because you don't want to match, say, someone that has Mel at Roll Jobs, which would be an incorrect match. So now you can see it returns back that. And the neat thing about this is you can actually just copy this formula over to another cell. And as long as you still keep the original destination intact, so A10, for example, then it's going to pull up whatever the next set of criteria is. So for example, here, we're looking up the director. Now we're going to look up whatever's in column 10 or 11 or whatever you want. And it looks like there isn't one for column 10. I probably should have thought that one through. Or 11. Okay, how about column 2? There we go. VLOOKUP, super easy. And it helps you just kind of, put together databases from 2 different places, or just simply look up missing information. For me, I use this a lot when I import from Seekout, and then I have to go fetch other stuff like cities or zip codes or phone numbers or things like that. Great, so let's go back to our regularly scheduled programming here. And that's this one here, okay. So then autoresponders. So autoresponders save me a lot of time. What I do with autoresponders is I use a CID, which essentially is the requisition ID or the rec number, and I insert that into the email that I send out. So, dear Shally, I'd like to network with you about this opportunity. Please reply back if you're interested. I know that's not a great message, but you know what I mean. Then at the bottom, below my signature, I just paste in CID : and then some sort of serial number, which is probably the rec number. Then I send that out through my CRM or whatever. And when anybody replies, I can then have a rule in my Outlook or my Gmail that looks for that ID number and then does something with that email. For example, if it has an attachment, it replies back and says, if I ask for the resume and say, please send me a resume, and it has an attachment, it replies back and says, thanks for sending me your information. Please click here to schedule some time for us to meet. Or thank you for replying back. Before we meet, let me ask you a couple of questions that I have to ask everybody, or something like that. So you're using an autoresponder based on an ID number that's in the email that is only relevant to that particular job. And that way, that autoresponder isn't going to get mixed up with anything else that you have for other similar campaigns. Now, Katie, did you have something? I don't know if you really do a whole lot of autoresponders. Was there something you wanted to share with us?
Well, I think when we spoke about this, I took this in a completely different direction. So when I saw the word autoresponder, I thought out of office autoresponders.
Oh yeah,
Which
yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, the actual use of the term, but that's what I thought of. And because we're coming up on the holidays, I'd love to share this idea, and that is to send out a message anticipating you're going to get people's out-of-office messages. And what I love about out-of-office messages is that it tells you exactly how to contact them if you need them. Well, you do. So I will generally send out a Thanksgiving message, a holiday message. I love sending out a Happy New Year message. And I'll send these, maybe the day before or on that last business day, so that it's not arriving on a holiday, it's still arriving on theoretically a work day, although I might actually be out that day. And yeah, I send out a note just telling them have a Happy New Year. And what I receive back is a tremendous amount of out of office. And what I use this is, for the CRM that I use, it collects all these by their email address. And I can then pull their, updated mobile number. A lot of times I can see who their team is because they list their team as additional contacts. Sometimes they'll even list the specific projects that they're working on. And if you remember from the specifics from the intake session, I love the specifics. I'd love to know that they're the ones running the immunology study on, this particular clinicaltrials.gov site. So I use those specifics and kind of track them back with one another to make sure that my information is always staying current, and then to pick up those ancillary details about how people are related within the workplace.
That's smart. So you're sending a message specifically for the out-of-office response, and it's just a message that says, hey, happy Thanksgiving. So no harm, no foul. That's brilliant. And then you've got that. Do you use anything to extract the responses, or you just manually copy and paste them?
Now, Shally, if I was really fancy, I would. But generally what I do is the ones I'm super excited about and I know I want to do something with, I prioritize those. And the others, maybe I'm going to reach out to them in the future. That information will all be within their profile and captured for me. And when I need it, I'll update it. Or maybe if I'm in a long car ride, I'll do it then. So.
Good. So speaking of a lot of responses, now you have a bunch of email replies in your inbox. How do you triage your inbox? What do you do to, manage the flood of emails in your inbox? I'm sure you're so popular you get thousands of emails a day.
I wish. I feel like I get a lot of news and a lot of job alerts. And I think I'm exposing how simple my sourcing techniques really are to y'all. I use flags. I flag the email if I know I need to respond to it that day, and I check it off when I'm done because I want to be able to see each day that I've responded to the people I need to. And, this gives me a great visual so that I'm not responding to people in my head and not actually typing it out and sending it. This just keeps me on track. Super, super simple. Hesitate to share it because it's so simple, but it really does help me.
No, it's a good idea. Flag action items, and then when you click the flag, it checks it as a check mark, and it's a completed action item. In Gmail, by the way, there's a similar thing. I think you can star and unstar as well, or use labels. But no, that's brilliant. So my inbox triage technique is actually equally as simple. Nothing fancy like you said there, which is I have a rule that is basically do, delete, or delegate. That's it. It's 3 things. Technically 4. So do, delete, or delegate. In other words, as I look at my email, if the email request is something that I can do within the next 2 minutes, or it's only going to take me 2 minutes, then I leave it in my inbox. I go do whatever it needs and reply or whatever, and then I'm done with it. So if I can do it in 2 minutes, I'm done. The other one is delegate. So if it's something that it requires somebody else, or that requires me to go, do something that takes more than 2 minutes, it takes 10 minutes, I have an, whatever, then I flag that and I move it to a folder, just one folder that is essentially my action items. So within 2 minutes, I do it right away. If it's going to take longer, I move it to a folder. Same thing, if it depends on someone else, I move it to a folder. Basically, I'm delegating to myself pretty much. Another way to say that would be delay, but I like delegate better. And then the third one is delete. If it's neither one of those, I delete. But in Gmail, when you delete things, just kind of go to a trash folder and they still stay there. In Outlook, depending on your system rules, you may not want to delete, you may just want to archive. And that goes into essentially a folder that keeps it for however long your company's email policy is. So basically my rule is if I can do it in 2 minutes, do it. If not, put it in a to-do item. Everything else, put in the archive. That's pretty much it. And that's what helps me keep sane. I'm not telling you that I have inbox 0, definitely not. But I have in my today pile as few unread items as I possibly can using this methodology. So it helps me at least try to stay sane. Now, phone sourcing is something that is often ignored or talked about in different ways. And I wanted to show you 2 things that you can do with phone sourcing that anyone can do. It doesn't require you having nerves of steel or being a social engineer. Katie, you had one. You want to go first? The internal transfer.
So thanks, Ryan. So yes, I don't do a tremendous amount of cold calling. I'll be the first to admit. But when I do make calls in, you want to make sure that your call isn't being flagged as maybe not quite the type of call that they were expecting, or perhaps somebody that they don't, that is not within the internal spectrum of that company. So a lot of times I'll call in, I'll ask for a certain department, and it might not be the department I ultimately want to get to, but I'll ask for accounting, and then once they transfer me to accounting, if I'm really looking to talk to someone within legal, I'll actually ask them to transfer me to legal. And in doing that, it changes my caller ID from, my company or, mentioning a recruiting firm, if that's the case for you. It changes that actually to just coming from the accounting department. So it, in essence, masks your caller ID, and it, perhaps can help you to be able to speak to the individuals that you're looking to get to a little easier.
So you call the operator, ask to be transferred to somebody's, executive assistant, and then tell her or him, oh, sorry, I meant to contact someone else, and then they transfer you. So when the person that you want to talk to answers the phone, they see the caller ID of someone internally in the company. Oh, that's smart. So what I wanted to show you is if you have Voiceover IP, you can get a client for your computer and set up your SIP account through your computer so you can dial through your computer. And if you have a desk-based Voiceover IP, you can also do this. But both of them allow you to change your caller ID. So here's my app, which is called Zoiper. It's a free app, and it uses my SIP protocol or my Voiceover IP protocol. Again, this is free. In Zoiper, you can go into the settings, and right here where it says caller ID name, you can change this to whatever you want. It can be your name, it can be a phone number, it can be a company name, and it shows on the receiving end whatever you put in here, which could even be, let's say, the company's phone number or whatever, and you're just spoofing essentially your own caller ID. Ryan, looks like you're about to kick us off here.
Yeah, we've got some questions, and then we're running low on time. So let me pull up some questions that we have. We've got 7 that I was going to ask, but maybe we'll depend on times. We got about 5 minutes for Q&A, so we'll blow through them and we'll see how well we do. First one, Shally, this one's directly for you. With regard to email, is Shally also suggesting that InMails and LinkedIn don't get delivered?
Yeah, I am. So an email from your inbox has a higher likelihood of being delivered than an email from a CRM, an ATS, or any one of the tools that you pay for. All the tools out there tell you that they have, they track open rates or whatever, but they don't tell you what their deliverability is. So you need to test that anyway. Get cleared, like Katie said, with your IT department, and make sure you test your deliverability. But yes, even with emails, the reason is that when you send an email, that is the choice is the users that receive the message, whether or not that email gets forwarded to their inbox. So they have a setting that they can select. If they choose not to have that message forwarded, then that person will not receive an email from you. It goes into their LinkedIn and only LinkedIn, and it's only when they go into their LinkedIn and go into their inbox on LinkedIn that they'll see it. If they choose to have it delivered, then it will be delivered more than likely. There's been a few cases where, and this does happen, where companies I've tried to contact via LinkedIn InMail, the InMail went into their unfocused or their spam. So my email got forwarded to the person, but their company policy moved it to the spam folder. So even with InMails, you have no guarantee that they're being delivered.
Okay. So second question is, and I guess this can be for both, what are the names of the email blockers, email testers, etc.? And can you send the URL? So quick answer is yes, we will send a list of everything in the follow-up. But can you guys name a couple as you're there?
Mail tester, mail-tester.com, and Glock, Glock apps, apps.com, and that's the one that I pay for. Mail tester is free for just one message.
Okay. What is the best voicemail at home work for a first-time call to a passive or recruited candidate to receive a call back?
Katie, what do you do when you leave voicemails? Goodness, I just stick to who I am and my details. I like to do less is more, because if you over-explain why you're calling, they have plenty of reasons not to call you back. If you keep it to be really brief, they can guess, but they don't know, so they have to call you back to get your details.
Got it.
Yeah, basically I just say, hi, Brian, this is Shally from Fiserv. Please give me a call back, 678-575-2212. So that's it.
Got it. Okay, it's the two of them I think we've, excuse me, we already answered. The second service that you mentioned was Glock. We got that. Can you repeat the email deliverability site that you use?
Mail-tester.com and glockapps.com. Yep.
Okay, good. And let's see, we get one more in here. What would be the most efficient way to find or remove all the rows that would be blank after doing a data scrape where there would be hundreds of lines of info, but a handful of blanks?
Yeah, actually two ways. The easiest way would be to do remove duplicates. So if you've got a big old list like this, and there's random blank rows in between here, you basically can just grab the whole database or table and go to data and then remove duplicates and just unselect everything except for whatever you know is to be a unique, for example, the email address, and anything that has a space in the entire row will be removed. The only exception to that is if it's not really a space, because sometimes you think it's a space, but it just has a blank character or like a space. You know what I'm saying? And then you might still have a few left over, but this is the easiest way. The other way, which may be a little bit less accurate, is to make a table out of it. So you take this whole thing, insert table right here, and then once you have it as a table, you can sort by any column, and that will sort all of the whatever A's or Z's, and then the last ones at the bottom will be blank, so you can delete it. So those are two quick and easy ways to do it. There's a third way, which would be what I showed you before with rules-based, where it allows you to highlight and then color it, and then you can filter by color and delete it, but that takes a little bit more work, so it depends on how complicated your, how many rows you have. If it's simple, you can do one of the other two ways.
Got it. All right, we have one more. Hey, Eric, Mr. Eric Jakewith is on. And actually, this question actually leads into in the Eric stuff here. Where are you finding and pulling phone numbers from? LinkedIn profiles, Career Builder, job sites? That was a question. Do you use any tools for free or paid to find them? Where are you finding contact information for people?
Yes and yes. I was going to show you. This one here, but there's for that particular question. So xlek.com is really interesting search. This is not really for phone numbers as much, although you can find phone numbers here, but it gives you a whole lot of other information. I mean, phone numbers is one of them. Right here you can see. I don't know, Ryan, if that's okay or not.
Yeah, that's definitely.
But yeah, it shows a lot.
It's some of the domains I do want a lot, but it's definitely the wrong age. I like the age better.
That's okay. We're not looking up your age. And there's 6 Ryan Larrys, so I don't know which one of these is yours. Anyway, so that's one. But for phone numbers specifically, I have another one, which is fastpeoplesearch.com. This is free, and it's exceptionally good at finding phone numbers. So I've found almost, really, I don't want to say 100%, but like over 90% results with this one. Let's see if it does. I don't know if I did that right or not. There we go. So it's wicked fast, and it usually gets you phone numbers. This one's it's free. That's my favorite one right now for free. Now for paid ones, the ones that I recommend are number 1, if you want to do bulk uploads where you have a spreadsheet and you want to enrich the data, I've seen nothing better than Swordfish app. Best phone number matches, especially personal phone numbers and email addresses. I use it all the time, and you pay by credit. So a credit is only charged when you use it. If you have 100 contacts and only 10 are matched, you only get charged 10 credits. And you use as you use it, you pay more credits. So it's not a monthly subscription, which is really good. I don't like those monthly subscriptions because 2 months go by and you don't use it, right? And then the other one is Verify. That is a monthly subscription, but it's $10 a month. Wicked cheap.